Hello folks, welcome to Italy. My name's Steve Sutcliffe and this is Tyre Seeker. Now this is a selection of the world's best premium summer tyres. And we're about to find out who makes the best premium touring tyre from a very good bunch. From Bridgestone, we're testing the new Turanza T6. From Continental, we've also got the new Premium Contact 7. From Michelin, we're testing the Primacy 4 Plus. And from Pirelli, we've got the Cinturato P7. As always, we've bought all our tyres from an independent retailer to ensure total neutrality. And we're testing each tyre in the wet and dry for handling, braking, cornering and aquaplaning. Our test car is an entirely predictable BMW 320d. And the tyre size we're testing is an entirely common 225/45 R18. For all our tests, the ambient temperature is between 24 and 27 degrees C. Right, before we go into the wet handling characteristics of these tyres, here's a little word about our sponsors at etyres.co.uk. At etyres.co.uk, they sell tyres, lots and lots of tyres. Unlike us, however, they don't really care which ones win our group tests because they sell all of them at the very best prices you'll find anywhere on the internet. So if you do want to buy any of the tyres that we feature in this test, do yourself a favour and check them out, etyres.co.uk. Right, back to the comparison test. So we spent the last 2 days on the wet handling circuit at our secret test track in northern Italy, and it was so revealing about these premium touring tyres because you really do find things out in the wet that you never really quite discover in the dry. We'll talk about each tyre individually in the dry in terms of its characteristics in the dry in a second, but I'm just going to go back through what I found out on the wet handling track, which was basically that you've got these 2 new tyres from Bridgestone and Continental, and it's amazing how much advantage they have over the other 2 more established tyres. Not necessarily over the Pirelli, because the Pirelli was very good on the wet handling circuit in the 3 Series. Just a completely solid tyre. It's just got no surprises up its sleeve, and it has lovely ultimate grip in the wet. It's really nice and predictable. It feels great under brakes. Doesn't allow this 3 Series to change direction just as sharply as in the wet, as when it's got the Bridgestones or the Contis fitted, but it's quite a bit sharper than the Michelin in the wet. To be frank, the Michelin is the disappointment in the wet. There's no getting away from it. It's just not as sharp as the others. It hasn't got as much grip. It doesn't feel as predictable as any of the other 3. The car doesn't stop just as well. You just have to give the 3 Series more space in which to operate when it's fitted with the Michelins. It's as simple as that in the wet. The Bridgestone in the wet has a little advantage, but it is a clear advantage over the Continental. The Continental is still absolutely excellent in the wet. It's just a really, really good solid tyre. But the new Turanza 6 just has a little bit more. It just makes the 3 Series feel that tiny bit sharper, and it's just more fun to drive without there being any compromises at all in terms of kind of predictability or comfort or refinement. It's an absolutely belting tyre in the wet is the Turanza, and the Continental is not much far behind. So in the wet, the Bridgestone and Continental were very hard to separate, both seeming to suit the 3 Series extremely well. Before we head back to the dry track, however, please do give us a thumbs up at the end of this vid if you like what you see here. And remember to subscribe to our channel if you want to see more of these vids. Right then, to the dry track it is. Usually what you find is quite often you get the exact opposite on a dry track to what you found on a wet track. So what's good on a wet track quite often isn't that great on the dry track because of the compromises that tyre makers have to make between softness and compound and just tread design, etc. So what works brilliantly in the wet doesn't always work that well in the dry. However, in this group, all that gets thrown out with the bathwater, because the two tyres that are really good in the wet, the Bridgestone and the Continental, are also the two tyres that are really, really good in the dry as well. It's mad. There's nothing wrong with the Pirelli at all. It's a lovely tyre. In isolation, you would put the Pirelli on a car like this 3 Series and think, wow, it's kind of transformed it. But then you try the Continental and then you try the Bridgestone and you just think, my goodness me, it's been to finishing school, has this car, with these tyres on. And of the two, I think the Continental is the pick in the dry. It's just got that extra little bit of snap and sharpness to it. It's slightly quieter than the Bridgestone as well, which is highly important for a touring tyre. Makes the 3 Series feel as stable as it ever feels under brakes and mid-corner under load. It is just the tyre for me, the Continental. And if you look at any of the dry data we generated, you'll see why. The Conti is quickest around the dry lap, produces the best results under brakes, and is second to the Michelin only by a whisker in outright cornering grip. The Pirelli is consistently good in all our dry tests. The Bridgestone a touch spiky in its performance, to be honest, although on pure lap time it does beat both the Michelin and Pirelli. So what we end up with, in conclusion, with this premium touring summer tyre test, is a very, very close dust-up between Bridgestone and Continental for the outright honours. Super close, almost to the point where subjectively one driver might prefer one tyre compared with another driver might prefer the other tyre. It's that close. They're both absolutely blinding tyres. In third, for me, is the Pirelli, and it's a really, really clear third above the Michelin. The Michelin is not a bad tyre by any stretch of the imagination. It's actually a very good tyre, but it's just up against 3 absolutely brilliant tyres in this group. So therefore, the Michelin comes fourth. Incredible to say that, really, because it's a great tyre, is the Primacy 4+, but it's up against genius tyres in the other 3, and the top 2, off the chart. Really, really excellent tyres. Thanks for watching this comparison test. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay safe and see you next time.